Hello and welcome to a brief video lecture that I've put together for you on drafting introductions and conclusions, particularly in reference to your first essay assignment, my multimodal memory, which is a personal narrative essay. Okay, so I'm listing several different strategies that you can use for your introduction and conclusion here. And the first couple of them we talked about in class. The first one is mise en scène, which basically means filling the scene. So trying to be as descriptive as possible in the introduction, maybe not really advancing the action yet, but trying to fill in a lot of description. And this is a term that kind of comes to us from filmmaking. The second one, in medias res, also comes to us from filmmaking, and basically means in the middle of things. So starting in the action, as things are happening. I think kind of borrowing another filmmaking term here, I was talking about cut to the chase. Oftentimes people start too far back with their introduction. So sometimes the best way to grab the reader's attention is to start in the action, and that gets the reader immediately involved, and so definitely something that will help to draw the reader in. A third one that I thought of, and we talked about in class, I forgot to list it here, but let me just go on, is use of dialogue. So use of dialogue also is starting in the middle of things and helps to put you as a writer into the action as if it were happening, helps to put your reader in the action as if it were happening, and so it can be a very effective strategy. So the next one is the so-called framing device, and the framing device is where you mention something in the introduction and then you return to it in the conclusion. And so sometimes maybe the opening scenario, how your story starts, is also how your personal narrative ends, kind of returning back to that scene once again. So the framing device has the effect of making the essay feel complete. It feels like it's come full circle. It actually produces a liminal effect in the reader. It's very satisfying. It shows that here's a writer that knows what they're doing. They didn't just write until they ran out of things to say, but they had, as I say at the top of this slide, a strategy to what they were doing. So think about that. How you start your essay might also indicate a way to conclude your essay. So something similar I call the touchstone device, which is basically something that's introduced at the beginning of the essay, is returned to 2 or 3 times throughout the essay, and then again at the conclusion. So it becomes a touchstone, something that you return to again and again. And I mentioned that this could be in the introduction. It could also be in the title of the essay. So, okay. So another one is the use of a quote. So this is different from use of dialogue, but maybe you have some type of inspirational quote that you want to use. And typically that's put in between the title and the first paragraph. This is called an epigraph, epi meaning before, graph meaning writing. So it's some writing that comes before the beginning of the essay. It's oftentimes single-spaced and centered, left to right, and frequently italicized. So maybe you've got a quote from Winston Churchill or Ralph Waldo Emerson or something like that, maybe a rock music lyric or something. And this helps to kind of set the tone for your essay. So, as I said, it's typically between the title and the first paragraph and kind of visually set off a little bit. So, The next one that I have here is use of dictionary definitions. I don't think you're really going to use that. Um, we're doing a personal narrative, so we want to get to narrative as quickly as we can. But I have seen it used in the past. I think I see it more in persuasive essays, analytical essays, things like that, rather than in personal narrative. But it is a strategy. By the way, both of these, use of quotes and dictionary definitions, especially use of quotes, could be used in the conclusion of your essay. But if you end your essay with someone else talking, then you've kind of given up the opportunity to have the last word in your own essay. So maybe not the strongest strategy. Also, dictionary definitions, let's say at the beginning of an essay, that's kind of become somewhat of a cliched strategy. So Webster's defines X as blah, blah, blah. People tend to overuse it. And so I would say, if you're going to use it in any of your writing, use it once a year. Don't use it any more than that. It really does become overdone. So the last strategy that I have down here is moving your conclusion to your introduction. So something to think about. Sometimes we write our way toward what we're trying to say, and sometimes I show a schematic for an essay, and I do the introduction as kind of an upside down triangle, and then I do the conclusion as kind of a right side up triangle. And so frequently the introduction and conclusion do kind of mirror each other. And so sometimes I've seen people take their conclusion and move it to the introduction, and it really helps to transform the essay, and it's more in line with what they're really trying to say in the essay. So sometimes the introduction is just kind of a stab at things, and then we say it better as we get toward the end. So keep that in mind. Okay. Other things about especially the conclusion, as I said in class, for this type of essay, we're dealing with abstract thought. And so I would schedule 2 or 3 different writing sessions to deal just with the conclusion. So, and remember, because we're dealing with abstract thought, we have to kind of write our way around things. So you may say things like, in other words, what I'm really trying to say is, or to put it yet another way. And I sometimes use those as strategies for kind of further unpacking what I'm trying to say. And then I might keep 1 or 2 of those, but I tend to get rid of the rest of them. They just help me generate more things to say, but we're not, it sounds kind of repetitive to say that over and over again. So, and then another thing that I had, suggestion for your conclusion, is to read a sentence in your early draft of your conclusion and look away from the screen or turn the paper over if you've got a hard copy and think, what else can I say there? And don't look at the screen again or don't flip the paper over until you've got something that you can say there. So you're kind of expanding your conclusion internally, and do that over and over again, sentence by sentence, to help you flesh out some of those things that you're trying to say. So those are my thoughts on some strategies for introductions and conclusions. And I hope this helps in terms of you kind of reconceptualizing your introduction and your conclusion and developing your conclusion more than you've got it so far. And stay tuned, and I'll have some additional information that'll help you in completing this essay assignment. Thanks for your attention.